Hi, my name is Adam. Today we are going to break down the working session for my song Gifts to Your Future Self. This was probably the most requested video from y'all, and I'm happy to create this today, seeing as it just passed 1 million streams on Spotify. So thank you guys so much for listening. It's amazing to see everybody connecting with this one, and I'm super excited to dive into this session and show you all the guitar tones, all the layers, all the nitty details and secrets that went into creating the song. Before we get into it, I do want to say this is probably going to be a longer video. I will do my best to set up chapters so you can skip around to the parts you're the most interested in, and I hope you learned something from it and can take away some tips for your own music if you're a creator as well. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all those things so the algorithm can help this video make its way to other people that'll enjoy it. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer everyone and address anything that I didn't cover in this video if I somehow missed something. If you're interested in learning how to play this song, I have guitar tabs and the piano sheet music available on my shop. It comes with a backing track too, so you can play along with it. A little bit about this song. It started as a short sketch I wrote for Instagram. The video went pretty viral, and I had a lot of requests to create a full version. And it just so happened I was in the middle of writing my full-length album, Where the Light Can't Reach, which, if you haven't listened to it, by the way, go stream that wherever you listen or pick up a vinyl. It's in the shop. It was really amazing how well this song fit like a glove with the sort of sonic universe I was building with the album. And so I was super happy to create this song and release it as the first single. So without further ado, let's get into it. What we're looking at here is the project session. We got all our major groups: guitars, piano, orchestra, bass, synth, and effects. And the song structure is very simple, as you know. We have an intro guitar, kind of a chorus big section, and then there is a piano outro. And that's it. I decided to keep it very simple and straightforward because I wanted the full version to really reflect the simplicity and structure of the Instagram video that everybody enjoyed. So my main idea was to start with the solo guitar that everyone heard in the video and just sort of layer it up over time and really create this like massive wall of sound using all these elements we see here: synths, orchestras, piano. And this format worked really well for me. A lot of my music does revolve around kind of looping guitar parts. So the structure felt very familiar, and I was really confident that I could create something special in a rather short amount of time. This song is, it's only like 1:50. Yeah, it's like 2 minutes. We'll just go top down. We'll start with guitars. I'm sure that's what everyone is most interested in learning about. These are all the elements within the guitar folder. We have a main guitar, harmonics, high doubles, chord doubles, and then 2 send effects. My approach to guitars on this album was very similar to how you might approach vocal production. And by that, I mean you will typically have a main vocal line that is being supported by harmony layers, by additional doubles of the performance to create more of a stereo image. All of these things to sort of plus up the sound and make it a little larger than life. But typically it's done in a way where you still feel like you're listening to a singular vocal line. It still sounds like just one person singing. I still wanted this to sound like one guitar in a lot of ways. We'll start with the main guitar folder. These top 2 teal tracks are the main performance, and then we'll talk about this darker teal one in a sec, but let's just hear what the main guitar sounds like. sure you're very familiar with that sound. Plugins we are using to create it is very straightforward. This is a DI track, and I used my Fender Telecaster to play this on the neck pickup. I'm using the Mixwave Spirit Box Mike Stringer plugin. This is basically the preset I used across the album, and it comes from my Ambient tone pack. This is preset pure. I did adjust it a little bit. We're only using the reverb, and you'll notice that everything else is off. An amp tends to subtract a lot of frequencies, and I really enjoy just the rawness and hyper clean sound you can get when working with just a DI. So yeah, we've got some EQ and compression happening, and we've got this shimmery reverb with the decay cranked up. The wet is pretty high. Low cut around 220, just avoiding some low end buildup. We have a noise gate before it, pretty self-explanatory. And I'm also using this RX8 voice denoise. This is really a helpful plugin if you're someone experiencing like high noise buildup, especially if you're playing like a single coil pickup like a Telecaster. This can really help remove, just some of that extra noise. Doing quite a bit of work here. I see 13 dB of reduction. That's quite a lot. But it worked. Looks like I have one last little EQ, which I probably added at the end of recording everything in the session, just to kind of massage a couple little things. But I love being able to have a very simple chain like this. See the main guitar chorus. I used my preset Hold My Breath Forever, which is very similar, but it does have an amp, and it's also doing a stereo ping pong delay, which is after the reverb, adding in this -1 octave. Sounds like this. The other thing I did was I used this plugin, the Transient Master, and just push the attack up a little bit just to help those plucks really come through. The chorus gets really busy. There's a lot of layers happening, and making sure that the guitar cuts through all of that noise is extremely important to me. So having little adjustments like that can go a long way to making sure that's addressed. This darker teal is a sum of both of these tracks, and this is what I call DI glass. This is a trick where I use a linear EQ to heavily carve out everything but this like 4 to 10K region where you get a lot of the like string noise and just like some extra transient information. And I run that through a reverb IR. This one's an empty living room. It sounds like this. It's getting compressed quite a bit. And this is sort of like an air track, I would say. It's just adding this extra lightness to everything. I'll kind of just turn it on and off while we listen to this main guitar. It's incredibly subtle. I acknowledge that. But you wanted to know the secret sauce, so that's what I'm doing here. The idea to create this really came out of me taking an interest in miking up my electric guitar, similar to how you would an acoustic. There was just something about hearing the DI and also hearing me strum the strings and just that extra bit of finger noise. I just really enjoyed the sort of like in the room realism it added. And ultimately, this became the much more practical way of accomplishing that sound. It's not a perfect one-to-one to what it would sound like miking up an electric guitar, but it's pretty close, and functionally it was much easier. So yeah, that is the main guitar. Pretty straightforward. Let's talk about these doubles. So we have harmonic doubles, octave doubles, and chord doubles. So a total of 2, 4, 7 additional tracks being stacked on top of our main guitar. They all sound like this. Yeah, that's nice. The chords down here, just left and right, doubles of that very first note, really just to add emphasis to each time that comes around. We have these high doubles, which I believe are just octaves. We got these pan left and right, just to add some extra width. Let's talk about a cool trick you can do with amp sims. If you're running into issues with your computer being slow, having this many plugins running at the same time, you're looking way to save some memory, save some space, you can take these two DI tracks, put them in a folder like this, and have a single instance of an amp sim running in stereo mode. This way you can still keep them left and right. You can still process them with an amp, but you only have to use one amp for both instead of two individuals. So extremely helpful. That's what we're doing here. The individual tracks of these takes just has a noise gate on it. All the processing is happening on the folder, which is our Hold My Breath preset. Lastly, we have these harmonic doubles. So left and right, hard panned of the main guitar's harmonics. And then we have this third harmonic center, which is the same note, just an octave higher. This just extends the the range of the sound. It makes it feel larger than a singular guitar could be by itself. And then on the folder, I do have a tape delay. Pretty basic settings. A generous amount of feedback up here, 40%. We're doing half note divisions. And that's just to help sort of fill the space in between each of these harmonics. Let's play all of these together with the main guitar. Let's talk about the send effects here. The first one is called Butterfly. These are just bounces of these send tracks. butterfly is the butterfly effect reverb by Soundbetter. I've made a whole video talking about this reverb, and I don't need to take a long time to tell you just how much I enjoy it. This is a preset called Wash Away, and I think I tweaked it a little bit, but overall, it's a very bright, shimmery, clean reverb. Sounds like this. Yeah, I mean, what more could you want from a reverb? I did some EQ adjustments to sort of remove some of the frequencies that were competing with the main guitar itself, mainly this like 300 region, where it's just sort of like the body of guitar, and then a lot of the high end information that lives in this like 2K range, because I want the reverb to sort of like soak in around a guitar and not take it over. Another thing we're doing here is using a compressor that is side chaining to a kick. We have a kick trigger that doesn't have an output, but it's just there so I can do some side chaining stuff that sounds really cool. Okay, this reverse track sounds like this. I love this sound. And this is really some secret sauce that I've been using since my very first album. It is a reverse delay with a stereo delay on top of it that's spreading out the left and right pretty far. It then goes through a channel EQ that's like heavily focusing it on this like 1K. It then goes through a bit crusher, kind of a radio sound that is being sidechain compressed against the main guitar. It's nice to have these effects that are reactive to your performance. And so that in combination with the butterfly reverb sounds like this. Let's hear everything together and I'll turn the effects on and off. You can really hear what a big difference having those effects makes on the whole sound. Lastly, we do have a few little automations happening on the main folder. A really important one is another pitch shifter that comes in right at that very end before the cutoff. We are adding a +1 octave. Why are we doing that? Really just add one more opportunity for the sound to get even bigger than it already is. And having it just right at the end, just that extra like final push. So that's the guitars. Let's hear the chorus with and without the guitars just to get a sense for what that's like. Awesome. Moving on, we've got the piano. We are using the Olafur Arnold's Composer Toolkit Felt Grand Piano. This is the piano I used across the album. It sounds great. It's really soft and intimate, but also has a really great dynamic range. So it was really fun to be able to sit at my MIDI piano over there and use this. So we got some nice octaves, and then the outro, of course. So let's talk about how we're processing this. We're using some compression, relatively slow attack, and a low ratio, because we don't want it to be noticeably compressed. Just kind of rounding out the playing a little bit. I'm using this direction mixer, which is making it almost mono, because I really prefer the sound of a mono piano. I think it adds to the intimacy of it and sounds more like you're in the room versus like when it's a super wide stereo piano, which to me sounds like sticking your head in a piano or something, which can be great for other applications. But for this, I really wanted to kind of have that more mono sound. And I'm running it through this empty living room reverb IR. So I really love the way that sounds. It's really subtle, but it's so nice in just adding that like in the room feeling. And lastly, I did add another reverb on top of it. I really enjoyed the sound of the piano with just the empty living room reverb on it. But when making this album, it just called for more reverb. It just did. So I love this reverb. I've been using it for years now. Couldn't recommend it enough. And if you saw there, we actually automated the mix on it to slowly decrease throughout the outro. It's just kind of slowly fading out. So by the end, it is just that empty living room sound. What else do we got? We've got this reverb send. It's just these little blips. What I did is I sent these just a couple notes to another reverb, Valhalla Supermassive, really just to catch those notes and give them an extra little tail. Let's hear that. So it's incredibly subtle, but I think it does do a lot in just making it feel a little bit more expressive, adding just this extra little bit of interest, a little bit of ear candy. And those are the only times that reverb is used across the piano performance. So yeah, that is the piano. Moving on. Orchestra. This is a big section. Look at all these tracks. I used the Emergence Audio viola textures quite a bit. This is a really cool software instrument. It has tons of different playing techniques captured, and the samples are very long. They have a lot of expression baked into them, and so it gives this very real, very human performance. So you can hear what I mean about it having just a lot of character baked into it. I used a few different instances of this. I like how fluttery that is. Almost like you sat a bunch of viola players down and didn't tell them what to play. They're just sort of like improvising or reacting to to the song, and that's exactly what I wanted. There are some lines that are calling back to the main guitar. It does strike this balance of entirely organic, but also thoughtful and reactive to the actual song. Let's see. I use the Dan King soft string textures. This is a really great library. It has this warp called Under the Surface, which is kind of a big orchestra. And I just did these swells. And these are really kind of interacting with the chord doubles we heard earlier. Check this out. I added a few other instances of those string swells to sort of give extra weight to those violas we heard earlier. Spitfire's original intimate strings. I'm just using the bass. Sounds like this. Lastly, I used the Spitfire Labs cello moods. Now, if you're not familiar with this, oh my gosh, please do yourself a favor and go get this. Cello Moods is a collection of samples recorded by Alice Allen, who played cello on this record. I discovered her through the plugin, and I was so happy we could connect and work on 6 tracks for the album. The speed at which I was recording this, I opted to use the plugin, but being able to have her samples included in this song was really special. Just check out how expressive and unique these samples are. I mean, that's just cool. You can't just get that anywhere. So yeah, all of the strings together sound like this. I really hate stopping it because it just I want to listen to the rest, but we have a lot to get through. So we have 4 send tracks for this. We have a room, a delay left, a delay right, and then this air track, which is kind of similar to the DI glass trick we heard earlier. Just for strings, let's add each of them in and hear the difference it brings. So the room is adding some kind of, low mid information and just kind of like gluing all of these tracks together as if they were in one space. The air track is doing a lot of work to, just brighten it up and make it extra shimmery. Sounds kind of nasty by itself, but functionally very powerful. And the delay, really just trying to add a little bit of blur, I suppose. Everything else has so much delay and reverb happening. It felt like, why not? Why not include this? So all the strings together. Let's just hear everything we've looked at so far together. Let's move on to bass. This should be a very quick section. We'll start from the bottom. We have a very just like straightforward sine wave bass. If you're listening on your laptop speakers, you may not be able to hear that, but it is adding tons of weight to the low end. We are introducing some soft clipping and using the decapitator from Sound Toys to add some extra harmonic information to this. Look at that. And then look how many more little peaks you have. Yeah, that's great. Next we have a Logic sample bass guitar. Sounds really silly by itself. I don't own a bass guitar, unfortunately, and I was working too quickly to go get one. So I settled for this and was like, cool, it does what it needs to do. It's really just adding kind of like that transient pick attack to the start of each note. Just adding some tangibility to it, I suppose. To push that even further, I used a guitar track. This is the Neural DSP Archetype Rabia, and I'm using my preset chord landscapes, which is also in my ambient tone pack. All right, let's talk about this distorted sub synth. This is another Logic plugin, the Retro Synth. We're doing some tricks with the LFO and running it through a distortion and the silver reverb. So these are all just stock Logic plugins. This one sounds real goofy, but I liked it in the mix. Here's what it sounds like by itself. Just for kicks, let's turn everything back on and play with that distorted synth. It's one of those things that if you're just listening to this song, you'll never really notice it. But once it's gone, I do feel like something's missing. There's just such a long stretch here, like on these chords happening there and there and there, that there's just room to play around and have these little flutters. And that's kind of what the orchestra is doing too, right? It's important that all of these tracks are being considerate of each other, unifying in certain ways. And this was my way of doing that. And I put it in the bass folder because this is all being sidechained to a kick trigger, just to get that like pulsing sort of EDM sound. Nothing wild, just about 4 dB. Let's move on to the synths. This is a bigger section too, but it's really just a variety of instruments, each just having their own little moments throughout. Let's start just from the beginning. I mean, I love that. I think it's awesome. Let's talk about these first three that we hear, these really whistly, kind of eerie sounds. We're using the Stratus plugin. We have another instance of the Composer Toolkit, and another instance. Clearly, I'm an Oliver fan. What do you know? I just like the little bit of eeriness and textures that can come in while the solo guitar is playing. Is it subtle? Yes, of course. But I think it helps to make it feel a little bit more seamless when the rest of these synths come in. It's not like a bunch of extra instruments out of nowhere. There's sort of like a bass ground for all of this. The synth that's doing the most work is another instance of that retro synth. Preset was Dark Swell Pad. Yep, it's in there. I'm running this through some RC20, just to add some magic to it. To me, this kind of has like a Stranger Things sound. It's kind of that like retro, gritty, lo-fi sort of texture to it. So the RC20 is doing a lot of lifting here, adding these like fluttery wobbles, a little bit of like randomness in the volume drops. It just makes it feel much more alive. Let's check this out. I think this is just a sine wave, but it's going through a tremolo. And then towards the end, I don't know why it's on a separate track. I think they look identical. We've got another one down here called Twinkle Arp. Well, I don't know what this one is. This was just a preset I must have found in the Alchemy plugin. This is also a part of Logic. This one was a major player in this section. It's this like whirly high cassette sound. This comes from the Spitfire Labs series. There's a pack called Granular Whale Song. This is the Nautilus effect. Then we're using the stock tape delay with lots of flutter to give it that kind of wow effect. And then, of course, using tremolo to push it from left to right, just kind of around the stereo image. Synth swells. What is this? Another one from the Spitfire Lab series, Opia Synthwave 3. Sounds like this. Aftershock rumble. This comes from Alchemy. One of the sound effects, just a big ol' boom. Very cinematic, especially when paired with noise buildup. Logic has this this test oscillator, and you have a few different sounds in here, one of them being pink noise. And then I am just using a regular old gain plugin to automate the level of it. I am sending it through a New Neighbor reverb. It sounds like this. Looks like I missed this. We got some wind and thunder. That's cool. So yeah, that is the synth bus. Let's listen to the song and we'll just kind of pull out different pieces. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we covered everything. We do have this submix down here. Every one of these folders is getting sent here. So all of this is getting processed with a little bit of this universal audio analog machine. It's got a little bit of drive, a little bit of sweetness to it. I'm using Soothe just to yeah, it's just there to catch anything that maybe squeaked through my EQ sculpting. Got a linear EQ only affecting the sides. We're just removing some of the low end from the sides and adding a little bit of high end. I've got a compressor using the vintage VCA. Very slow on the attack and release. and pretty low on the ratio. This is really probably only doing like a dB, if that. Right, but that's just gonna, smooth things out a little bit. Using a console EQ, making some little adjustments, and then looks like we have one more EQ just to like really like final catches. And that's all just going to a limiter. Typically I have my limiter doing, I don't know, 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction. Any more than that and it becomes extremely noticeable. I still want everything to be expressive and nothing gets squashed too hard. So I think that's it. I think we've gone through everything. This has been a long video. I hope I covered everything and answered all your questions. I have ambient tone packs available in my shop. All of the tones you heard in this are included in those. So if you have the mixed wave spirit box or maybe neural DSP like archetype Nolly or Robia, you can have these sounds and you can pick up the guitar tabs. You can learn how to play it and play along with the backing track. So if you had the presets and the backing track, I mean, you could have this sound, which I think is really cool. I love sharing everything I do and making it accessible for other musicians who are trying to learn and get better, and just like educating on how I go about guitar and ambient music in general. So again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. If there are other songs from my new album you'd like to have a video kind of like this for, I'm open to suggestions. If you're a member of this channel, I will weigh your opinion significantly higher. So do consider joining the channel. Becoming a member really helps support me and what I love to do. And so, yeah, I think that's everything. I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider sharing it with a friend, and I will see you next time.